Hi, my name's Dan Hill, and in this video we're going to be covering how to create observations for an observation checklist that aligns to specific performance criteria from a unit of competency. So to get started, we're going to look at a unit of competency, and in particular I'm going to look at a performance criterion that has something to do with communication, as this is a field that is across all training packages and all industries. So therefore, it's probably one of the most interesting ones to try and pull apart and figure out how to do a high quality observation of someone's communication skills. Let's get stuck in. So I've selected a very practical unit. In this case, it's the TAE Dell 301 Provide Work Skill Instruction. And if we look at element 2, where it says conduct instruction and demonstration, and more specifically performance criterion 2.1, we're looking at a really interesting performance criterion. It says use interpersonal skills with learners to establish a safe and comfortable learning environment. Now that's something we need to be able to observe, but where do we even start? So like before, I'm going to copy and paste this onto a blank sheet so I can start working on it. Now, just like with knowledge requirements, I'm going to look at the key words and I might highlight them. So interpersonal skills, what are they? What is a safe and comfortable learning environment? Okay, the whole last bit here. So interpersonal skills and establishing a safe and comfortable learning environment. These are the parts of this performance criteria that I need to be able to flesh out within the observation to ensure that we capture everything that would be required to do this in a real workplace. So firstly, what are interpersonal skills and where are we going to find that out? Well, like before in the knowledge questions, we're going to look through the content to establish what interpersonal skills have been taught as a part of the course that this person's undertaken. So from the content, I've got this list. So interpersonal skills are the qualities and behaviours we exhibit while interacting with other people. These include emotional intelligence, effective body language and eye contact, positivity, and openness to feedback. So again, these are things that we're going to have to observe as an assessor. One there that stands out to me, emotional intelligence. That can be broken down even further to see how the candidate regulates their emotions, responds to the emotions of others, and so on. So there is quite a lot of SME or subject matter expert knowledge that has to go into this to ensure that we are creating a checklist that captures the key components of effective interpersonal skills. Let's look at the next part we've underlined here. Establishing a safe and comfortable learning environment. Safe and comfortable. That stands out to me. So we need to make sure that our observations can witness what it means to have a safe and comfortable learning environment. And again, we get that definition from our content, whether it's in learner guide or textbook, facilitator's notes, and so on. So from the content of this particular course, a safe and comfortable learning environment includes the following. So it includes physical, emotional, and psychosocial aspects. And I've got definitions for each of these. So physical includes the immediate environment, temperature, seating, lighting, access to equipment, and similar. Emotional and psychosocial includes peaceful and engaging interactions with those in the environment, free from conflict, prejudice, embarrassment, and harassment. So again, these are the things we have to be able to observe in this one performance criterion. So how are we going to do that? Okay, so now let's look at the whole performance criteria broken down into the individual components that we've discovered from the learning content. So firstly, when we talk about a safe learning environment and the physical aspects such as temperature, seating, lighting, then this isn't using interpersonal skills. So we can remove that completely because this isn't something we want to observe during this particular performance criterion. We're really just concerned with the interpersonal skills and how they are used to ensure safety. So in that instance, we're looking at emotional and psychosocial safety. So including peaceful, engaging interactions, free from conflict, prejudice, embarrassment, and harassment. So we could use that as one check-off point, okay? Or we could break it down possibly into two. Then I've broken down emotional intelligence into 3 areas here. So regulates their own emotions such as stress, nervousness, fear. They are empathetic to the emotions of the learners. They've used emotions to positively engage or motivate the audience. Now, in doing this, I've actually removed the positivity part down here. If you can recall, we looked at positivity as a part of interpersonal skills. So if we can embed that under emotional intelligence, then we don't have to do it separately. Then I've said effective body language and eye contact, and I've broken that down into stood or sat comfortably in front of the audience and faced the audience and made eye contact when speaking. Okay, so this is stuff that as a subject matter expert, you should be able to develop for the communication component, if you like, of any unit of competency that you might be writing observations for. For instance, if you're doing something in a workshop, then you might say, stood at the machinery facing the audience, or stood at the machinery with the audience in clear view, something like that. And lastly, openness to feedback. So I've written in here, ask questions and received answers, paraphrased or repeated answers to ensure clarity of understanding. Okay, that shows that the person is open to feedback in the form of questions. Now, we did say this is an observation checklist. So that means we have to format this into some sort of tick box format. Now, if we're creating something online to be used on a tablet when someone's observing or on a laptop, then the software itself might have a feature where you can tick off certain lines. But if I'm just doing it as a printable resource, then I'm going to have to create a table with some checkboxes on the right-hand side. So I'm just going to quickly do that. I'm not going to show you how to use Microsoft Word to create tables, but I'm going to quickly do that and we're going to review that in a second. Okay, so I've put all these into a table and I've included some checkboxes over to the right. And I've also done a couple of other things here. So firstly, I've used the word candidate. The reason we use the word candidate instead of learner or student is that sometimes a person is undertaking an observation as a part of an assessment-only pathway. So it could be RPL, RCC, what they call verification of competency, and so on. So therefore, they're not a student, they're not a learner, they're just there to undertake the assessment. So we refer to them as candidates. Secondly, I've included this box here, I've included this column here. How was this demonstrated? And the assessor is to complete this. So what they might do is, as they're observing each of these things on the left-hand side, they can go through and check them off and then go back and recall exactly why they said yes or no. So if the learning environment was peaceful and engaging, they can say there was plenty of interaction with the students who all seemed happy during the presentation or during the training. Again, the environment was free from conflict, prejudice, embarrassment, and harassment. They can select no potentially, and they can say some embarrassment was felt by a particular student. Down here we've got emotional intelligence, regulated their emotions. You can say yes, but how? Okay, so you could see that maybe the candidate breathed deeply during their presentation, or they breathed calmly, or they maintained their composure throughout. So potentially that's a way of regulating their own emotions. Empathetic to the emotions of the learners, how did they demonstrate that? Well, that can be in the way they ask questions, the way they listen, the way they understand if students are or are not getting the content as they're going, and so on and so forth. So even though this was just one performance criteria, we have got several observations that we've broken this down into and provided space here for an assessor to write down how they observed the person doing that particular task. So if you think about creating an observation checklist as a way of verifying that somebody can do a job or a task, then you can understand why we need to go to this level. Without it, if we just said, yes, they're emotionally intelligent, and we try to then break down in the assessor feedback exactly what we saw, then we're not making the assessment particularly reliable, because one assessor might miss, for instance, that they positively engaged people, and so on. So we really need to break it down to this level so that we can gain reliability and we can ensure that the person does actually demonstrate all the features that they've learned and therefore can do the job competently.